Okay, Zokte the Gemara, we are at the top of Zavkuf Gimel, Amar Aleph, and the last thing we learned was there was a machlokes whether or not Menashe did tshuva or not. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Kol ha'omer Menashe ein lo chelek l'olam haba. Anybody who says that Menashe does not have a chelek l'olam haba, mirapa yodayim shel balei tshuva. He is weakening the hand of a bal tshuva because Menashe was about tshuva, and if you're going to say that he had no olam haba, so then al balei tshuva will be concerned that they don't have olam haba.
Amen.
Ah, geschmack, olam haza.
I had to warn you this part.
Okay, well, the Tani Tana, Kamei Rabbi Yochanan, someone who's quoted a Bryce in front of Rabbi Yochanan. Menashe also tshuva, shloishim v'shalosh shanim. He did tshuva 33 years. And the Gemara makes, or the Mishnah makes a calculation. Tichsiv, ben shtei meser shana Menashe b'mochai. He was 12 years when he became a king. And how many years was he a king? V'chamishim v'chamesh shana, 55 years, Malach B'Shalayim. Vayas Asherah, he made an Asherah, Kasher also Achav of Melech Yisrael. So his riches was similar to that of Achav. Kama Malach Achav. Achav was bad his whole life. How many years was he bad? How many years did he make Avodah Zarah? Esher Matartan Shnin, for 22 years. Right? Remember, we learned that Achav was Zoicha to be a Melech for 22 years. Why? Because he was Mechaber the Torah that has 22 Oisiyos in it. So Zokt Gemara, Menashe Kamen Malach, Chamishim v'Chomesh. So if he was a king totally for 55, and he did Averis Agacha for 22, what's 55 minus 22? Dalminayu Esem V'Tartan, Pashalu Talsan Utlas, come to Chayshus 33 years where Menashe did not do bad things, and must have done Shuvah. Amr Rabbi Yochanan, Mishum Rabbi Shimon Yochi, Ma'adich says in the Pasuk, Vayishme Elai, Vayechter Loi. It says, let's see the pasuk inside. Vayispal love and Nash David. Vayaserloi. It says Vayaserloi. Hashem heeded him. Vayishma techinasei. So break the Gemara. Vayechterloi. Vayeterloi. Well, it does have Vayeterloi. So the Mesivta explains that the ksiv is Vayechter. So decree is Vayeteloi. So the question is, why didn't it say Vayeteloi as the ksiv as well? Vayeteloi mipayloi. Zaktimor Malamed she'asa lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu kamin machteres b'rakia. Kivayachol, it was very difficult for Menashe to have a tshuva, to be accepted with tshuva. So Kivayachol, to Moshel, Hashem made a special allowance to be able to accept the tshuva of Menashe. So he dug like a tunnel to get by the Midas Adin, to the Kabbalah b'tshuva of Midas Adin. To circumvent the Midas Adin, HaKadosh Baruch Hu built like a tunnel to get around it. So it's a mashal that Hashem had to create a special level of rachamim to accept the tshuva of Menashe.
Most of his reign,
He was good, it seems. Yeah. He pushed Eden to do Avodah Zarah. There was Avodah Zarah all over that he placed, that
right.
They encouraged him.
The last 33 years he didn't do that.
Correct. When it's referring, normally when it refers to the first year of a king, it says Bishnas Rishon L'Mochai. It's a little bit unusual for the Navi to express this with the word Bereshis. There's only 2 times where the Navi refers to the first year of a Malchus as Bereshis. It's Bereshis Mamlechais Yehoyakim and Yoshio. Yehoyakim was a Russia, right? Because it also says Bereshis Mamlechas Tzidkiah. Tzidkiah was good. Right, the Gemara, V'chi'ado idna lo have a Malki, or were there no other kings until now, that only now it uses a nusach of Bereshis? HaKadosh Baruch Hu was very upset in the days of Yehoyakim, because Yehoyakim was a very bad Russia, and therefore HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to destroy the world, B'shvil Yehoyakim, because of Yehoyakim himself. But a wicked king there was. But in the Stakel B'Doira, he looked at the door of Yehoyakim, when the Cheresh and Mizkar were still in Eretz Yisrael, and they were still huge Talmidei Chachamim and Tzaddikim. So even though the king was very bad, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu saw how wonderful the door was, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kavayachol calmed down, and that's why he didn't kill him. On the flip side, by Tzidkiah, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu L'Hachshos Adam Kulul L'Sayv Avayu, B'Shvil Dorish Tzidkiah. The door of Tzidkiah in Eretz Yisrael, there was nobody good left because all of the Talmidei Chachamim and Tzaddikim were already shipped off to Bavel. So Kodesh Baruch Hu was very angry at the door. When he looked at Tzidkiah and he saw the Tzidkis of Tzidkiah, then V'niskara Daitoi. Frank Gemara, how could you say that Tzidkiah Nami Ksiv Vayas Harabini Hashem? So you see that he wasn't so good. So Gemara, you know why it said Yasara? Be'etzem Tzidkiah was a tzaddik, but he could have done more to prevent his door from being Rishoyim, and he didn't. Ish Chacham Nishbat es Ish Evel. If there's a sensible person trying to talk sense into the fool, Virogas, he can come with toughness and anger, or V'schag, he can come with lightheadedness and jokes. It's not going to have nachas. In other words, he will not be able to get through to the fool. So the Gemara is darshaning that the Ish Chacham is referring to the Rebbeinu Shalom and how he was trying to impact change in Klal Yisrael. Amar Kodesh Baruch Hu, Ki asti alachas. I got angry at Achaz. I was tough with him. V'nasativ b'yad Malchei Damesek, and I made him fall into the hands of the Malchei Damesek. I punished him. I tried to convince him to change with what we would call roiges. So what did he do when he was in Golos? Zibach, the Keter Leheyim. He joined them in their Avodah Zarah. So it didn't help. Shenemar v'yizbach lehei darmeshek hamakim boy v'yoymer ki alehei malkei aram heim ma'azru moisom lehem ezbach v'yazruni, they will help me. And really, they were just machshel him with the Chol Yisrael. Then Sachakti Mamacha, with a matcha, which actually occurred first, I tried to be good. I tried to help him and maybe get the way I would get him turned on to Yiddish guy. When Asati Malchi Edom B'Yadoi, to the contrary, I allowed him to conquer Malchi Edom. And what did he do? Hevi Elahayim, he brought their getchkes, Vishtachav Elahem, and he bowed down to them. Shenemar Biba Achari, Ba Amachi, HaKodesh said Daimim. When Amachi finished hitting the Daimim, V'yavoy Els Elahei B'nei Seir, V'yamidim loy lehim, v'lefneim yitztachave, v'lehem yiktar. He would bow and he brought karbonis to them. So Hashem says, I try every which way. It doesn't work with you guys. Amar Papa, Hani Darmarinchi, this is what the Velt says. Bachila Lamar, the Loyoda, you could come with, make him cry, you could try to convince him with toughness, but the guy doesn't have a clue. You could try to work with goodness with the guy who doesn't have a clue. Woe is to this guy who's clueless. Whatever HaKadosh Baruch Hu tried with Klal Yisrael, it just didn't work to get their attention and to knock sense into their heads. All of the generals of Melech Bavel came. They sat in the middle gate. And the Gemara dashes, what is this referring to? The place where halachas get cut, meaning in the Mokum Sanhedrin. To the Sari Moav Melech Boyev, and it's sat. And basically, they were partying where they were partying in the Mokum HaMikdash, where Klal Yisrael used to get their halacha from, where Sanhedrin used to establish halacha. In the same place, on the same hook that the owner, the king, might hang his weapons, Taman Kol Barayo, that's where the Bilige shepherd will hide, Kolse Tolo, will hide his jug, his thermos, or whatever it is. In other words, the Heilige Beis HaMikdash, the Mokaim of the Sanhedrin, was defiled by the partying of the Sari Melech Bava. Zogt Gemara weiter. Simin al sedebatim loisuna. Amar b'chista, amar b'yom yabarabba, ma'itich sev, it says in the pasuk, al sada ish otzo lavarti. I went by the field of a lazy person. Val kerem odom chasar lev, and by the vineyard of someone who doesn't think. V'hine ala kula kimshonim, of course, it was full of thorns and weeds. Kasu fanav, its whole face was covered with charulim, which is another word to describe thorns and weeds. And v'gether avon of Nersa, and its stone fence around it was broken down. So the Gemara dashes the pasuk. Al steish otzolavarti ze Achaz. That's referring to Achaz, who was not a good king. Avodah Zarah. Val kerem odom chasar leiv ze Menashe, who also brought Avodah Zarah to Klal Yisrael. V'hine ala kula kimshonim. That's referring to King Ammon. Kasu fun of Charulim, Zayya Yakim, it's referring to the time of the Malchus Yakim. The Gadav of the nurse is referring to Churban Beis Hamikdash, says it Kiyo, Shenechav Beis Hamikdash Biyam. There's four groups of people that will not be able to make Mekabel Pnei Shechina. Kat Leitzim, Kat Shakronim, Kat Chanifin, and Kat Mesaper Lashoin Hara. How do we know this? Kat Leitzim Nechsev, Mashech Yodoi El Loititzin. Because Baruch pulls his hand away from the lights. Kachakronim dechsiv doiver shkorim lo yikoin leneged einai. People who speak sheker won't be able to have place connected me. This is what Hashem said when the Ruach of Novois wanted to go to fool the Nevi'im to say the Ruach sheker that Achab should go fight a war yesterday. Kat chanifin dechsiv ki loy lefanaf chanav yovai. Achonif will not come in front of Hashem. Kat mesaper l'shoin hara dechsiv ki loy keil chafetz resha. The Rebbeinu Shalom does not like a Rasha, Ata lo yigurcha ra. In Hashem's Seviva, a Ra will not live. Tzadik Ata, you are Tzadik lo yibim b'churcha ra. And the pasuk there is referring to someone who's Mudaber b'Lashoinu, someone who speaks Lashon. Amar Chisda, Amar Yirmiyah bar Abba, my Dechsev said in the pasuk, lo yisunu elecha ra. Bad shouldn't happen to you. This is in Yosy b'Seisha. I think it's Pitl Tzadik Gimel. Lo yisunu elecha ra is shalo yishloit ben Yitzhar ra. The Yitzhar, so the bracha that is being given over here, I think David giving Shlomo bracha, you should not, the Yitzhar should not have a koich on you. Then comes the bracha of Negel Yukov Balecha, that's Shalatimta Ishtach Safik Nida B'Shas Tavim in Aderech. When you come home from a long way, you want to be with your wife, and you find her to be a Safik Nida. That's torture. It's worse than if she was a Vadai Nida. As Rashi speaks out, Shalatimta Ishtach Safik Nida, V'hainu Boyalecha, Be'ishtecha means. Kedarinon, so when it says, Lo Yavai Ra Balecha, what's the Lashon? The Lashon is V'negel Yukov Balecha, you shouldn't have your wife to be a Safik Nida. And that's worse. Yosy min the devadois. Shal savak hu meitzar v'yitzrei takvoi v'aymertayirhi v'achinim ani moneya. Right? You're thinking to yourself, I can't be with my wife, but it might be for nothing. Maybe she's perfectly kosher. So vadois is not so troubling. Suffolk is somewhat troubling. Davar acher l'suda lechara. It means yivasucha chalei misroim. You shouldn't be afraid from bad nightmares. The hirhurim and bad hirhurim. And the negel ayukav alacha is shelo yeheloch bein oy talmud shemaktiach tavshilei barab. You shouldn't have a besan or a talmud that burns food in rabbim. I don't think he's thinking like a public barbecue and then he burns the steak. What does it mean? Shelo yeheloch ben oy talmud shemaktiach tavshilei barab. And v'oid, do you have this little vav over here that tell you to look at the tziyonim? Do you have that in your Gemara? A little vav? No vav there? You have a vav there, but you have a vav. So if you look down at the bottom, you know it says something very interesting. It sticks in over here. Let me see if I can find. Oh, here I have it over here. It says it sticks in over here. Bidfus yashon lifnei sensor from before the sensor. Noise if it says going yeshoy hanoitri. You shouldn't have someone who burns the meal in public and sticks in from the sensor before the sensor. It said. Like Yoshua. So Dr. Henry Abramson, he's a historian. He's scratching my head. What exactly is this referring to? And he said he went back to many different versions of the Gemara, and many versions have Yesha and Noitri, but there's many versions who don't have Yesha and Noitri. So the question is, what is the real Girsa? And what does it mean? So he says, I went and looked through the Apicursus to save you the effort. And I looked through the New Testament and the Old Testament and the scriptures or whatever it is that he looked through. There's only one record of Yoshka cooking a meal for his disciples. And it was a breakfast that he cooked for them. But it doesn't say that he burnt it. So the question is, what is the symbolism of burning the tavshil mean? So he wants to tell you that there's several times that in Gemara it brings down this lashon of overcooking something. And it has a mashmoyus keilu that what you did could have been a good thing, but you overdid it. Too much of it is not a good thing. So he said he gave an example in the Gemara Brachas. The Gemara also uses a lashon of harei magdiach tavshil rabim, is somebody who what was he referring to? Somebody who I forgot what he was referring to. A case of when you do it once, it's a good thing, but if you do it too many times, then it's not a good thing. So he said that he believes, he says, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say that probably the Girsa is wrong over here. And he said, you have to understand, when they first printed the Shas, there were so many written versions, there were so many kisvei yad of the Shas, that the printers had to go through and decide exactly how they were going to write it. As a matter of fact, if you look in our Gemara, there's square brackets and there's round brackets. The round brackets means they thought that there was a word that was in the manuscript, but they didn't think it belonged there, so they put it in round brackets. And then there are words that were not in all manuscripts, only some, but they felt it did belong to you, so they put them into square brackets. As you see today, on the day's daf, there's a lot of round brackets and square brackets. So it could be they put in certain schois, they put in like Yoshka, but it could be it's a mistake. And he holds, shouldn't say anything because it's referring to Menashe. Because Menashe also, he built many Mizbechos to Hashem, but he also built Mizbechos and brought Avodah Zarah, brought Karbonos to Avodah Zarah. So that could be the example of Maktiach, Shiloi Barabim, is because he brought too many Karbonos, and that's what messed him up. Okay, Zot more weiter. Adkan, up until this point in the Pasuk, in Yosy V'Seiser, is Baruch Hayov, is a bracha from the father to the son. Rashi is from David to Shloim. Mikan Velech, but the next psukim is Berchas Ha'imai, are his mother's brachas. And what are those? It says, Ki maloch v'yitzav l'shmorcha b'chol derechecha, al kapay misa'uncha, al shachal v'fesen tidrech raglech. You should float, it should go easy. And the Adkan Berchas Ha'imai. Now, the second set of brachas is brachas that his mother gave him. And then the last set of brachas in this capital is Berchas Shemayim, are the brachas that Shemayim gave him, referring to Yivi Choshak. He had a cheshek for him, meaning he followed me. Therefore, Bafalteyu, I'll save him. Basakveyu, I'll raise him up. Ki Yoda Shemi, because he knew my name. You'll call me Vaneu, and I'll answer him. I'll be with him all the time. Achalteyu, Bachabdeyu, I will save him, and I will be chabed him. I'll give him a lot of life. And I'll show him with my Yeshua. We should all be zoichet to that. So we have these three categories of brachas that we're looking at over here in this capital of Yosy V'Seiser. So Rashi says where the demarcation points and how we know that certain brachas represent the brachas from the father and certain brachas represent the brachas from the mother. Where does it all come from? So let's have a look at Rashi. Ad kan borchai aviv. David aviv l'shloim b'nai. David was giving a bracha to Shlomo. Mistama lefi inyan brachas yesh leidos David borchai. From the content of the bracha, you could tell it's the type of bracha, the typical bracha that a father might give to a son. Shekei derech av b'dvorim ha'elu. What would the father bench a son? B'sofek nida. A mother is not going to say you should never go home and find your wife b'sofek nida. That's more of a bracha that would come from the father's perspective. Ubi yitzhara. You shouldn't be impacted by the yitzhara. There's also a father to have a bracha. Ubi herurim royim. Ubebonim, v'talmidim, shelo yachtilu tavshilum barabim. All of these are types of brachas that a father would give. Avalisha, the feminine bracha is a little different. Anyone says this, she doesn't focus on these types of things. Elamam brachas halev, from the softness of her heart, is the type of bracha she gives. Sheyesh lo mispalelas al beno, she davens for her son. Sheyinotzel me'even negev, he should be saved from something that he can trip over. Umeruchin v'sheden, that's the type of bracha. That's what the mother thinks of when she benches. That's why the Gemara is darshaning according to the context of the brachas. She'elu brachas b'chas ha'imai kimalachi v'tzavalach. Moiri Rebbe. V'oid. Another point is mishum dechsev kimalachav. It says since before each set of brachas there's a word that seems to indicate a break. So there's different brachas here. It says kimalachav mashma the solak inyan echad the bracha. It's mashma that we're finishing one category of brachas. That's also a unit of brachas. That's why it breaks it up this way. So Rashi is trying to give us a little bit of insight why the Gemara is breaking up the pasuk this way. Does anybody have an article? We have an article. Does the article describe it this way, or am I off? You're behind. Does the article explain it this way as well? How he breaks up the pasuk. I want to make sure I didn't make a mistake. I was a little bit tired when I was preparing, so I need to double check myself. Okay, very good. So we'll go back. Let's just see Rashi on the top of him. Basically, chashak Loishach, such a lashon, continuing Rashi's theme, a little bit rebellion to Alma. That's not a mother or a father talking. That's clearly the rebellion I'm talking. Claim that person who loves me, Yosy, and he's afraid of me. Therefore, I will save that person. Referring to the rebellion I'm talking. So now we have 4 lines from the top on Daf Huf Gimel on base. It says in the pasuk, "Vayimna me'risharim oira." I will take away from the Rasha their light, Uzuraya Rama, and their great strong arm, Tishaver, I will break. So it says Meir Sha'im. Now, in the word Meir Sha'im, that ayin is not written in the line. That ayin is written a line up. So there's like a gap between the shin and the yud, and the ayin is not on the line. So you're reading a Meir Sha'im because the ayin is part of the word, but it's not really written part of the word. Why is that? Why is it hanging between the 2 rows and it's not in line with the reish and the ayin, with the shin and the yud? So more because we want to be able to read it in Meirashim, because that's really what it means to say. Because what the pasuk really means to say is kivin shenasa adam rush milamato. Someone becomes poor down here, meaning he's hated by everybody here. Nasa rush milamata, he's automatically hated upstairs. Right? We say in Pirkei Avos, Kol misha ruach habris noichimenu, ruach hamochim noichimenu. If someone is beloved down here, it's a sign that he's beloved up there. If he's not beloved down here, he's not beloved up there. And that's really what it was saying. So really what it was saying, Vayimna me'roshim oiram. The 2 roshim. If you're roshim upstairs or downstairs, you're going to be roshim in both places. Nashi rosh milamayla. That's really what it means. So why does it stick in the 9? The teretz is because there were 2 people. There were 2 people who were roshim lamata, but they were not roshim lamayla. So that's why it's stuck in the ayin, because these 2 people who were roshim lamata, who were hated on this world, yet they were loved up in the world above, were tzaddikim. A rasha, if he's hated here, it means he's hated up there. But a tzaddik is lav dafka. So that's why it sticks to ayin to say rishoyim. This rule that if you're rosh lamata, you're rosh lamayla only applies if you're a rasha. And that's what the Gemara says. Well, Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Elazar, they have 2 different opinions as to why the ayin is there. Because of the respect for David, because David was hated down here, and nevertheless he was beloved, so he doesn't fall into this rule because he was not a rasha. Let's have a look at what the situation was with these people. This rule doesn't apply to tzaddikim. David had many enemies. So you might say, oh, so because he wasn't beloved by the Rebbeinu Shalom. No, because this rule only applies by Rishoyim, and David we know is a tzaddik. And the same thing with Nehemiah and Chakalia, who is the Navi Nehemiah. He had many enemies, min nochrim. So the Yid might have loved him, but the Goyim hated him. He was building a Beis Hamikdash. They hated him for it, like the world hates Bibi Netanyahu, right? Because he's trying to protect Klal Yisrael. I don't know this possible what it means. He had people even amongst the Yidden who hated him. So they were mevazim. They didn't. There was a lot of people who didn't like Nehemiah. The Kedushim Farsh like that's why it sticks to ayin to tell us that this rule that he's not loved down here, it means he's not loved up there. It should be Rishoyim Arminon. It applies only to a Rasha and not to a tzaddik. Tanur Banim Menashe Haya Shoyna Chamishim v'Chamisha Panim v'Toris Kahanim. Menashe was a Rasha. He used to darshan 55 pshatim in Toris Kahanim. Rashi says Sefer Vayikra Haya Mechadush Boy Kol Shana v'Shana. He would create Chadushim in Halacha in Sefer Vayikra. And he lived for 55 years. Every year he darshaned new beautiful Torahs on Sefer Vayikra. Kenegad Shnei Malchusai, parallel to the amount of years that he was on Malchus. And Achav was Shemoidim v'Chamisha Pshatim and Yerava Meir Shloisha. So they were very bad, but they were massive Talmidei Chacham. Gewaltig. One of the Mefarshim the Mesivta brings down asks, I don't know, while they were big time involved in Avodah Zarah, they're also learning Torah. It doesn't make sense. So they say maybe it was before or it was after the place, but it said there you could be a big Talmid Chacham and you could still be a big Rasha. Zok Gemara, Tanya, you're looking at me funny.
No.
Tanya how you are Rabbi Omer.
They're learning like from an intellectual way, but they don't
Internalize it.
Internalize
Yeah.
it.
Tanya how you are Rabbi Omer. Avshalom ein loy chelik le'maba. Avshalom, who's the wicked son who was murdered in David HaMelech, ein loy chelik le'maba. Shenemar vayakus Avshalom, they hit him. Vayamisu vayaku. There's a double ocean here. So it's a vayaku vayamisu. So we dash in vayaku is boilam hazeh. Vayamisu is l'adam haba. So this doesn't stem with the medrash where David kept on saying bini bini every time it brought him up from one level. Tanya Reb Shimon Elazar Omer Mishum Reb Meir Achaz v'Achazia. Achaz and Achazia, who were Malchei Beis Yehuda, and V'chol Malchei Yisrael, and all of the Malchei Yisrael, where it's written about their Malchus in the Novi, Shekasav and Vayas Hara B'nei Hashem, Loi Chayin V'loi Nidoin. This is a very interesting concept. What does actually Loi Chayin? Means Loi Yichyu Loi Lamaboim Tzadikim. They will not avoid Lamabah. But V'eini Doin Nami Beganim. They don't get Gehenim. So they're somewhere in the middle. Normally a Russia goes to Gehenim and doesn't go to Lamabah. They didn't go to Gehenim, but they're not going to stand up by Lamabah. And Rashi says this applies with Dafka Kamar Malchei Yisrael. Abel Shloima v'Tzidkiya mi Beis David also. There, of course, even though by Shloima said v'Yasera ben Hashem, Avada he went to Olam Haba. V'Avagav d'Chsivu v'Yasera Chayin hein Losar Avada they are going to have Olam Haba. Who's Achaz and Achazia? Mimach Yehuda. They're from Mach Yehuda. The Kimlu we know Shal Yerushalayim the Rishayim. V'Amin v'Yakum l'Choshev. It doesn't list Amin and Yakum. V'Avagav the Avarishayim. Even though they're also pretty bad people, but there we know that they are going to have Chiyas HaMesim. So the Ben Yehoyada says, I don't understand. What's pshat? They're not going to get in. They were Rishoyim. So he brings down, I think, from the Ben Yehoyada over here. So let me go back. Before what I said, that how did they make so many chadushim if they're busy in their avodah zarah? The Yad Ramah, who's a Rishon, asked a question, and he said the Kavanas of Gemara is Shemachma Sheyadirish Teres Kahanim B'Chamishim V'Chamish Ponim. In the good year, in the years that he did tshuva, he was zoicha to be a melech for 55 years. So he was only a melech for 55 years because he darshaned. Now he also says, how did they live? So he says She'ein Lahem Lo Hana Shel Gan Eden. These malachim don't have the no Gan Eden, but v'lo tzar shel Gehenim. Ach, so where do they have the kapara from? Yeshlan tzar midavos al atzmai. The mere fact that they're in limbo, that's painful to a neshama. That's how they are punished for their rishus. She'enim yicholim likodesh leganed. Ubirni explained shatam she'enim nenoshim achadim. Lamaitza, why don't they didn't gefer lachaveris? They were machshuk l'aysh on the avodah zarah. Why wouldn't they get punished? Zot yad v'mo kivon sheishtadlu ba'atzolos nefashos Yisrael. Lamaitza, they were kings that they cared about their country. And they tried hard and they did whatever they could in a gashmistic way to protect Klal Yisrael. That's a noble thing. The nilchamu milchamis chayva, the hitstaru b'tzarim shel Yisrael. They felt the pain, and that's why they were zoicher that they don't go to Gehenim. Uveven Yoyada, he says shekavanas Gemara she'enim chayim. They're not going to live lasad lavai ve'enim nidoinim, and they're not going to be punished. Al nisaklim. How do they get the takana? Aydeshin nishmasam miskal gelas b'chol darvadar. Their neshama rolls from generation to generation. I don't know what that means. That's above my pay grade, but that's how they have their. That's how they have their. Really, Gehenim is not a punishment. Gehenim is a tikkun for the neshama, so that's how they have their tikkun. The gam dam noki shofach Menashe harbe moed. Menashe spilled much innocent blood. Ad asher milei es Yerushalayim pelopeh. Till he covered Yerushalayim mouth to mouth. We'll see what that means. Levad mechatosai shehechnis Yehuda lasas Rabbanei Hashem. Besides the fact that he was machli klais with avodah zarah. So hacha tergimai, here they explained it in Israel, I guess. Shahar Yeshaya. What's the pelapeh? He killed Yeshaya. What does killing Yeshaya have to do with pelapeh? So I believe Rashi tells us the hakam akra mile es Yerushalayim pelapeh. Shedismoshe shel tzadik shkula kamoisha mile es Yerushalayim chalolim. As if he filled Yerushalayim chalolim. But again, the Mesivta tells us that v'davar zeh nidrash pelapeh v'hainu k'mavura b'yavomis shechesharotza Menashe largish Hashem Novi. When Menashe wanted to call Yeshaya Novi, Omar Yeshua Shem, Yeshua said Hashem v'nivla be'etz eretz, and he got swallowed up in a tree. Remember, we had a couple of days ago, the guy was saved by getting swallowed up in a tree. So what did Menashe do? He started chopping up the wood. So he would kill Yeshaya Navi inside. When he got up to the mouth of Yeshaya, there Yotz in the Shmosai, that's when Yeshaya died. Why did Yeshaya get such a terrible einish that he was killed at his mouth? Shami Yeshayo, he says, it's this in the Torah of Yisrael, Amal Yisrael, B'soich am Temeis Vasayim Anochi Yosy. I sit amongst the nation of Temeis Vasayim, because he said that about Klal Yisrael, he was killed by his mouth. The Dovers are Ramos Bepelope. That is Ramos in the pasuk Pelope, referring to Yeshaya Navi. Shenenas lehehareg bepiv. His einish was to get killed by his mouth. Machma shadiber bepiv al Yisrael, and this is the Marsha. Okay, Zok the Heligamor weiter. So one pshat is that the aver that it's referring to is the fact that he killed Yeshaya Navi. But the Marava Amrin in Yisrael also Hacha is Bavel. In Yisrael they say she'asat Selem. He made a Salem, a getchke, that was so heavy, it was Masay Elef Bnei Adam. It took 1,000 people to carry it, and he made them carry it. So literally every day people were dropping dead from the weight of having to lift this crazy Salem. They would all die. So Pelapeh here must mean just mouth to mouth, like wall to wall carpeting of dead people, I'm assuming, because there's no special marsha on how Pelapeh translates into all these people dying. Zog to the more weiter. Kaman Azla Hadu Amar Rabbi Bar Chana. Rabbi Bar Chana said, Shkula neshama so tzadik echad. The neshama of one tzadik is connected kol olam, like the whole world. Kaman the Amar Yishai Harag, because the pasuk is talking about many people being killed, and it's only referring to Yeshaya Navi, according to the Abshat. Zog to the more about the Ksiv Pesel. So when it talks about the avodah zora that Menashe put up, it says as follows. Let me see if I can find it inside over here. This is Hey and Vav. So in Pasuk Hey it says, "Vayosam es Pesel hasemel asher asa beveis Orchim asher amar Orchim al David el Shlomo benoi." So he put it in the base of Mikdash, and then it says Silasei ve'asaloi. Right, Moshe, Menashe, David, and Hashem listened to him. V'chol chadosim oloi v'amekoyim asher bono be'em bamois v'hemet ha'ashem v'hapsilim lefnei kani, before he was taken down and he did Juva. So did Menashe put up one peso, or did he put up multiple psalim? He put a getchke into the base of Mikdash that had one face, but that means kavayochol the Shechina only in one direction would see him. And then he made 4 faces on this getchke, so that no matter what angle you're looking at it from, you saw the face of the getchke. So he wanted to stick it into the face of the Shechina. No matter what direction the Shechina is looking from, the Shechina is going to see this avodah zara. So he was at the point where he was doing these lahachas. He wasn't even having enough from it. He was just trying to teach Hashem with chutzpah. Achaz hemidui be'aliyah. Achaz put it in the Ali, put it up high, maybe on the roof even. He put this getchka. Shenemar v'shamizbechois asher alagag aliyos achos. Right, that passage that we read. V'lamizbechois asher alagag aliyos achos. So achos put it up high, I guess everyone could see it. Menashe amida behechol. Menashe put them in the hechol. Shenemar v'yosam es pesel asher asher also bivayis asher omar Hashem al David vel Shlomo benu b'bayis zev Yerushalayim asher b'charti mikol shiftei Yisrael osam es shemila olam. Right, which was the passage that we just quoted. And Omoin, who was another king, who was the Yenitzatske, he brought the Getchke into the Beis Kodesh HaKodeshim. Shenemar, it says, Ki ketzar hamatza mi yistereya v'amasecha tzara. Kiskanes. So Pashup Pshat in this pasuk is it's referring to that there's going to be so many enemy soldiers that are going to overrun Eretz Yisrael that there simply won't be enough room to house and to contain the massive amount of soldiers. It's like a double ocean. Ketzar Mata, the mattress was too small, Mistareya, to be able to stretch out your feet on it, right? V'maseicha tzara, and your cover was too small, Kizchanes, to cover yourself with it. Right? I remember I once went to Eretz Yisrael, and I was Ephraim Malone's partner. I think I said this story. And I was Ephraim Malone's partner. And we stayed in the Merkaz Hotel, which was called the Prima Palace. So when we checked in, I said, I need one short, wide bed and one thin, tall bed, long bed. So they gave us 2 short, narrow beds. So I remember Ephraim's feet would rest on the dresser. So Dr. Gemara, and I hung over a little bit like a Dollar. Okay, so Dr. Gemara, we going to darshan it. Maki Kotzer Amasa Mishtareya, Omar Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachmani Omar B'Yonason, Ki Ktar Mata Ze Milishtar Alov Shnei Reim Ke'echad. What it's saying is there wasn't enough room in the Kodesh HaKadoshim to house the Shechina and the Avodah Zarah. So it's Kivayachol, it cramped the Rebbeinu Shalom style. What's the double lotion of Ma'avav Masechet Tzor? The cover is not big enough to cover yourself with. Amar Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachmani, Rabbi Yonason, Ki Havamoti Lahaikra. When Rabbi Yonason would reach this pasuk, Hava Kabochi, he would cry. Misha Kasa Boy, the Rabbanish Shalom, with reference to the Rabbanish Shalom, says Kindness Kaned Me'ayom, because Baruch Hu can pile up all of the waters of all the oceans. Such a great HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tasaloi Masechet Tzara, he's not going to have enough room. How you talking? Do you see the horrible degradation of the Shechina at the hands of these kings who brought in the Avodah Zarah? Achaz Botal Esu Avodah. He stopped the Avodah in the Beis Hamikdash, so he stopped the kind from doing Avodah, and the Chasam is a Torah. He sealed up the Torah. He didn't want anybody to learn. Shenamar Tzur to Uda Chasum Torah Bilimudeh. So let's look at the pasuk inside. It says, focus. Please focus. Oh, Tzur to Uda. Tzur to Uda means to tie up. To Uda is referring to. I'm trying to remember what pasuk the pasuk was. Tzur to Uda, it's tying something up. Chasoim. Which means the testimony of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is Torah. Chasoim Torah v'lemudai, and to seal it up so that no one could learn it. So he was mevatel Talmud Torah. So let's see the pasuk inside. Tzur Tehuda Chasoim Torah v'lemudai Menashe. So that's what Achav did. That's what Achaz did. Menashe Kadar Ez Haskoros. He erased the shemus of Hashem. The Haras Es HaMizbeach, and he broke the Mizbeach. Amun, he served as a Torah, he burnt the Torah. Vel Shemamis Al Gabei HaMizbeach. Since he burnt the Mizbeach, so it wasn't used anymore. And what happens when something falls into disuse, into disrepair? Spider webs grow there. So it doesn't mean he literally brought spider webs. He caused that spider webs should grow there. And Achaz Hitter Es HaErva. He said everybody could do znus. Menashe Baal HaChoisot. Menashe had relations with his sister. Amun Baal Imai. Amun was Mizana with his mother. Shenemar, and we're going to soon see, he raped his mother. Shenemar Kihu Amun Harbe Ashma. He did very bad things. Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Lazar, Chadam Shesarvis and Torah, he burnt the Torah. The Chadam Sheba Al Imai. So Amar Imai, his mother said, how could you do this to me? Flum Yesh Lechana Mimakam Shiyatis Mimenu. A person can never have a Hana from the same hole that he came out of. That can't give him an eye. You don't have a taiva to be mizana with the place that you came out of. In other words, why are you doing this? So obviously she wasn't masking. So obviously he was forcing himself upon his mother. How horrible they became. Omer Lei, he told her, "Plum on the Isa, where you think I'm doing it for no? El lahakis is buried. I'm not doing it because it's enjoyable." He told his mother, "I'm doing it for davka lahakis." So you think how depraved they became? It's unbelievable. He also Yoakim, when Yoakim came, Omar. He said, "Kamoi lo yodi larguzei." Nobody made Hashem angry like I made Hashem angry. Nobody knew how to get under Hashem's skin like me. I really did a good job. Like this is what they were Syrians of. They were proud of their riches. Why do we need Hashem? The only thing He does is He provides the sunlight. No, I could do without Him. Zov parvai, we have this special shiny gold. That will give us our light. Let Him take His light and shove it. Right? That's what he said there. So disrespectful. So the people told him, idiots what you are. Where do you think the gold came from? But we already, Hashem gave it to us already, so we don't need Hashem anymore. Oh, the Lublin strikes again because we're going to say that today, right? Because we're saying Hallel today. Why wasn't Yoakim mentioned in the kings of our Mishnah that lost their chelik in Olam Haba? Let's just look at Rashi. It says in Rashi, he seems to have been exemplary in his riches, in his merida. So how come he wasn't listed as somebody who lost his own haba? The other horrible things that he did, and that was found on him. What does that mean? He sort of tattooed avoid zara on his shotgun, we'll call it, right? Or I don't know what's worse: the disrespect of putting the Shem Hashem there, or the chutzpah of putting the avoid zara there. I wonder who he showed it off to. Amar Lei, he said, "B'melachim loy shamati." I didn't hear any halacha about melachim who's included, not included. So I can't comment about Yoakim being included in the list of kings that are not going to have a chelek l'olam haba. But shamati. But I did hear some interesting information about the list of Ejoitos that have been listed not to be in the olam haba. And let's just remind ourselves who they were. There was Yeravim, no, that was a king. There was Doeg Hadoimi, there was Bilam. So who were the others? There's Doeg, there was Bilam. Oh, I can't imagine. It's the first Mishnah in a parak that listed off who the four Hadjoitis. So we should know this by heart. We have to know our customers. When we're going to go to Olam Haba, we have to remember who we're not going to see. Bilam, Doeg, Achitophel, and Gechazi. So about that, I heard something, and I have something that I could share. Zok Tahelig Gemara. And who's talking over here? Who is talking over here? Rabbo. Okay, so he said, Mipnei Ma'aloi Manu es Micha. Micha was also a pretty big Russia, right? He made Pesach Micha. He was the one who Moshe Rabbeinu saved from the walls of Mitzrayim. Mipnei Shepitoi Mitzuya Lo'ever Dura. He had a schus. He was very generous. He always had guests, and he took care of them. That schus saved him, that he became a Ben Adam Haba. Shenemar Kol Oiver V'Shov El Halavim. And Micha was the Levi. He was a priest that everybody would stop in to nourish themselves. The Ovar Bayom Tzara. Pasuk says there'll be Tzara in the Yam. The Hika Bayam Galam. Hashem hits in the river, in the ocean, the waves. Amar B'Yechanan Zeh Shalish Shal Micha. That's referring to Pesach Shal Micha, the damage that it caused, as Rashi says. Kishakasav Moshe Hashem v'shlichoi al nilos lahalos harodah shel Yosef. Hashem Moshe Rabbeinu threw in the name of Hashem into the Nilos, and that raised. He said Ali Shor, right, and that brought up Yosef. So he put that Ba Micha, but not like Bechave. He said, "Hey, that's a powerful paper. I'm going to grab it." He grabbed it and he hid it clandestinely, and he used it for his avodah zarah. Finding Siv over by Yom Tzara, meaning Kashev Hakadosh Baruch Hu li Yisrael, when Hakadosh Baruch Hu took Klal Yisrael to cross the Yam Suf, over Micha Yimon, Micha with them, Shebiyodai Hashem, he had Hashem lost his egel to make the egel. So Micha participated in making the egel Azov, not only his own pesel. Lishnachina Micha also pesel, his own pesel, V'yavia Ima, and he brought it with him, Kisha Avru Yisrael Bayam. So he brought the Tzoros Bayam, that's what it means. As they're crossing the waves, Micha had trouble with him. Zok to Gemara weiter. Amr B'Yochanan, Zepsel, Shemicha Tanya B'Nos Neimer, Migerev L'Shiloi, from the city of Gerev to the city of Shiloh. Is it pronounced Gerev? How is that city pronounced? Gerev was Gimel min was 3 million. V'haya Oshon Hamarocha v'Oshon Pesel Micha Mesarvin Zebezeh. When the smoke went up from the Karbonis, the smoke of the Karbonos in the Mishkan were intermingled with the smoke that came from the Karbonis of Avodah Zarah. So Biksu Malachi Asheros Badoichvai. The Malachi Asheros, it's a shayla means they wanted to kill Micha, or if they wanted to push away the smoke. Don't touch him. He's untouchable because he has a schus shapita mitzuya la'ivrid drachim. Valdovazeh nenshu anshe pilegish begiva, and that's why the people of Pilegish begiva were nenash. If I'm not mistaken, by the Pilegish begiva, first people came, an army of 40,000 people came to attack Binyamin, and they did not succeed. And then the whole Klal Yisrael ganged up, and they did succeed. So at first they were killed. Why? Because when all the avodah zarahs were there violating me, you didn't say a word. But al kvodah shel basar v'dam, this woman who was violated, who was gang raped, her you worried for machisem. So that was a kitrug, and that's why they got killed by Binyamin. Amar Bechna Mishum Rabbi Yosy bar ben Kisma Gedoyle Lagima. Eating, feeding somebody, tasting has huge powers. Sherchika shtei mishpachos miYisrael. It actually distanced two mishpachos in Klal Yisrael. Shenemar al devar asher lakid me'eschem v'lechem v'mayim. Ammon and Moav are our cousins. They're Lord's children. They're family. And since they didn't feed us, now they're not family anymore. So you see how important Lagima is. Rabbi Yochanan Didei Amar Merachekes is a kroivim. It pushes away people who are close to you. Umekareves is a rechoikim, and it brings people who are far away close to you. Umalemis einayim in Arishayim, and even in Russia, if he does Hachnosas Orchim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu doesn't look at his affairs, as we saw right over here with Micha. Umashur Shechina al Nevi Abal, and it causes Shechina to be on the Nevi Abal. V'shigagasa oile zadoin, and we're going to see what this means, and we're going to see what all these things mean. So Merachekes is a kroivim. It pushes away people who are close to you. Who is that referring to? Me'amun Moav. Umekareves is a chaykim miYisrael. The Amar Rabbi Yochanan b'schar keredaloi v'yoichalachem. What did Yisrael tell his daughters? Moshe is here. Bring him. Let's break bread with him. Zachu b'nei banov v'yashvu b'lishkas hagazos. The Englach of Yisrael sat in the lishkas hagazos in the schus of his Hachnosas Orchim to Moshe. Shenemar u'mishpacha yisayfrim yoshvu yavetz teratim shamatim sukosim hema hakinim aboim Machmas Avi Beis Rechev. So we'll get into the details of this pasuk tomorrow. I fell asleep here, so we have to stop here. It's a very geschmack of Morris, but